Good evening. Good evening. We're going to get going with your dinner entertainment. Don't worry, we won't stop the serving of the meals. I know everybody's hungry. On behalf of Trinity Partners, welcome. My name is Ajay Chopra. I'm a general partner at Trinity. This here is my favorite event of the year because we get to meet the people behind the scenes, people that actually get stuff done. So really happy all of you guys are here. I hope you get to network with each other, learn from each other, enjoy each other's company, and hopefully you can help each other in your professional as well as personal lives. That's the intention of this event. So thanks again very much, and a quick cheers to all of you. Thanks for all of your hard work throughout the year. Really appreciate it. Tonight's guest is a very special person, close to my heart and also to my pocketbook. I have to be honest. Brett Wilson founded TubeMogul roughly about 9 years ago, and he and I have shared that journey for almost 7 years now. Grew the company from a 2-person startup to over 400 people right now, a global company and a public company. They went public middle of last year. And today is a very special day for Brett. They just announced their earnings, so he's actually exhausted. But you should commend him because today was hard work. You brought the market cap of the company up by almost $60 million. In fact, Brett told me today that Tube's future is so bright that I got to wear shades. Come on up, Brett.
All right, hi everybody. So,
You'll be okay. Should we keep these on?
you add $60 million in market cap in a day, and Ajay gives you a pair of Zerks sunglasses.
I'm always promoting my company.
By the way, if you don't know Zerks, it's on-demand valet parking. Great company.
I love this guy. So where should we start? We talk to each other so much. Maybe we should start from the beginning.
It's been a while, yeah.
So, you're a pretty grounded person. How did you come up with the idea of actually becoming an entrepreneur and founding a company? Why that craziness?
Well, I was in business school at the time at UC Berkeley. Any Cal Bears people in the house?
Oh, awesome.
All right, any Stanford people here? Woo! I'd been an entrepreneur before, and I met somebody in business school that changed my life, and it was my co-founder, John, who is kind of a Da Vinci type. I mean, this is someone that could build anything with software, with his hands. John has a chicken coop in the back of his house that's a replica of his house. He has, he's just kind of a crazy guy. And in between our first and second year of business school, I was working for Yahoo and John was working for Adobe, and we were taking the Amtrak down every day. And on the way back up, we'd meet up in the beer car, and we get a beer, and we just talk about life in these companies. And the conversations really revolved around how difficult it was to get anything done, how difficult it was to be great. And so we decided that we didn't want to work for the man, and that we wanted to build something. So we're in business school, and if any of you have gone to business school, it's kind of a joke. I mean, you have classes the first year. The second year, people are learning to golf. So our second year in business school, we were coming up with ideas, and we were literally like building products and throwing them against the wall to see what stuck. And we enrolled in Berkeley's business plan competition. And this is a competition that normally, there's a company that's in the sciences that wins, that, kind of true to Berkeley's roots. Here we were, a company in the online video space. Well, we won that competition, and that was pretty important John and I both racked up a lot of debt. We'd never started a company before. We didn't have any money. We were about to take this insane risk. And I think winning that competition, it kind of gave us a little bit of street cred with our spouses. And there's a special person in the audience that was taking notes that we met up with a year later, and that was Ajay and Trinity. So we won the competition, and we won the People's Choice Award, which is kind of the audience gets to vote for who made the best pitch. And the $22,500 that we won, that was our startup capital. And this was in a time when raising equity capital wasn't quite as easy as it is now.
This was 2008, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 2007. 2007.
That's right, 2007, right.
So that's how it all started.
Yeah, interesting story. Actually, that's where I met you guys first, at that competition. And I know you won that competition, but I wasn't very convinced that this thing was going anywhere at that time.
Yeah, well, see, we were having a really hard time. We had raised a little bit of angel capital for an initial idea, which I can tell you about, and the company pivoted quite a lot. But we were trying to raise venture capital in 2009, and it's just a tough environment, and people weren't doing deals. And you called me up, and you had watched us since that business plan competition, and you said, hey, you did exactly what you said. I want to do a deal. And I guess what I took away from that is, if you know anything about venture, people. There's definitely kind of a populist element to it, where VCs, they invest in themes and they invest in phases. And you made a bet on us when it wasn't obvious, and which was good because you did a deal at $6 million pre, and the market cap today is
Actually,
about $500 million.
$9 million pre.
Was it $9 million?
I'm sure it was 6.
Okay.
Actually, I'm happy with 9 pre. So.
All I know is it really hurt. So yeah.
No, it was good for both of us.
It was.
I remember when I went to your office to meet the company and the team. I think there were like 15 people or something at that time. You had just hired like 4 or 5. I think you had brought in the contractors to make it look like a bigger company that day. But there was this big banner up there which said, "Beat Stanford." Like everybody there was from Cal, or I think most people were from Cal or Haas. And I know you leveraged that a lot in the early stages to build your competitive culture. The company's based, by the way, across the bay in Emeryville. So this was like Cal culture. All the founders were from there. And you sort of used that to your advantage in a very clever way. And kind of like said, like, we can be the best company in this space. We're going to be all Cal guys. And I think it took you a long time to actually hire a Stanford guy. I remember in the management team, we talked about that over time. But talk a little bit about
and that was a huge mistake, what we did.
Just a bunch of Stanford guys in here. So, but you should probably talk a little bit about how you use that to your advantage, and how that ended up being actually a pretty interesting way to start, to set the culture of the company.
Yeah, I think it wasn't so much about Cal versus Stanford. And I guess it's never been lost on me that my co-founder and I were disrupting a space that we weren't part of previously. And two people using open source software can do great things and can be incredibly disruptive. And so, we talk about this notion of competitive advantage. That's hard anymore. When you can be disrupted by two guys that didn't come from the space using open source software. So because of that, we've always really, really valued people and culture above everything. And the company has pivoted quite a lot since we began. However, I'll tell you, we were always very intentional about the type of company that we wanted to build. So the product changed, but the culture actually feels very similar from the early days. And the culture at TubeMogul, it's real. They're not just signs on walls. It's the reasons why we hire, fire, and promote people. And we've invested a lot over the years in systems and processes to really reinforce that culture. And we really believe that's That's how you win. Now, as to Cal versus Stanford, what can I tell you? For those of you that went to Cal, you got to fight just to get your classes. Cal, nothing's handed to you, and I think both John and I were products of state school, and our culture is a little bit of a culture where pedigree doesn't matter as much. It doesn't matter where you went to school, where you worked last. It matters what you do. And early on, we kind of codified our culture, and we realized that when you're starting, can you hear me in the back? When you're starting a company, at least to us, we felt like the only thing that matters was do you do what you say? Do you follow through?
Maybe a loose connection there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's better.
Is that better? So we really believe that accountability is all that matters. So we coined this phrase called the do-say ratio. And that's always been kind of a key part of TubeMogul's culture. And we just try to hire people to simply just follow through, to do what they say. And if you think about your own lives, it's kind of rare to have people that actually consistently follow through. And we've built, 500 people, on that principle.
I took a few notes here so I don't forget to ask you the right stuff. One of the things that in the early stages I remember, your team was very, very tight. And, I would characterize your management style, even today, as being, high on accountability, but also very high on loyalty, right? So, and very high on team development, internal team development. So for quite a while, actually, you stuck with the original 4-member team, the two of you who founded the company. And then, as you know, in very early stages, you did a small acquisition, the 2 founders that came from there. 4 of you sort of basically ran the company, right? And frankly, as an investor coming from the outside, I was thinking is this going to be an insular culture? Will it be hard to, graft people into it that come from the outside? Because that's usually healthy for the company as it grows, as you have seen now, when you're so large. And I'm just wondering, what was your thinking at that stage? I mean, obviously that strategy worked really well. I mean, those 4 people are still with the company in very senior positions, doing incredibly well. But they were all right out of school, placed in a high-growth company, right, in very responsible positions, and hiring tons of people underneath them. So just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the culture and really valuing people that, per your intro, just are the people that get shit done, the people that make things happen. And when you start a company, you raise money, you have a board, you'll get a lot of pressure to bring on people that I call trophy hires. They sound good, they look good, they come from the right backgrounds, but they may not be the right people for your company, for your culture, and at the pace that companies like ours need to grow to win. So that was always important to us, and I think we always knew that there was a certain set of beliefs and values that got us where we were, and we wanted to make sure that we kept those values and beliefs alive over time. And the best way to do that was by betting on the people that got us here. That doesn't mean everybody is scaled over time, but generally that served us well. And the people that we started with are the people that are running the company now.
Yeah, but you also, it's not that they just scaled by themselves. You made an investment in them, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that. How did you invest in them? That combination of loyalty and accountability is a pretty delicate balance, right?
Yeah, we've made, I would call it a very significant investment in talent development over the years. And it started like a lot of things do at startups out of necessity. And we sell a product that's complicated. And when we looked at our financial model, one of the levers was how long does it take a seller to be productive, to get up to speed. And it took 9 months before a seller really started to pay for themselves. So we invested in training. sales training. So a couple-week training. At the end of it, you had to pitch the CEO, and you were not going to get in front of clients unless you were ready to go. And that worked. We were able to kind of literally accelerate our financial model by bringing down the time to seller productivity. So we started doing this for everybody in the company, and we built out a learning and development team. And I'd say we did it at a stage that was kind of uncharacteristic. We were still pretty small, but everybody in the company now goes through 2-3 weeks of training. And what happens is, it's just a great time to reinforce the things that you care about. So during that training, I'll teach a class on culture and values, but beyond what you say, it's about what you do. And you're kind of conditioning people for how we expect you to execute and behave at TubeMogul. So before you even start, we send you a package of things that we expect you to read. Then you start in whatever office you've started in around the world. We give you a checklist of things that you have to do. Your manager has to sign off on that. Then you fly in, you get 2-3 weeks of training. What we hear a lot is from people that have never been through anything like this, even from big companies. So that was a success. So we doubled down from there, and we built kind of an intranet, essentially, called TubeMogul Academy. And the idea was we'd have our product managers hold classes. And again, complicated piece of software. So if you wanted to take a class on mobile video, you could log on and you can just sign up for a class that the product manager held. And the team of people that were orchestrating all this, they didn't have to be the experts. They were just managing the program. So now we have all these classes that people could take. And we realized we're starting to get big. We're worried that we're going to lose our way a little bit. So we developed classes for interviewing. And these are really TubeMogul classes. A lot of the material, it's not just interviewing, it's interviewing at TubeMogul. Here's what you need to do to be good at filtering for the qualities that we care about. We rolled that out, and now if you want to hire people at TubeMogul, you have to go through this class. We also did the same thing for managing. We rolled out a class that we developed called Managing at TubeMogul, and I think that's one of the ways that we've kept the culture strong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually pretty incredible because Dick Costello, who used to be on our board at TubeMogul, before he joined Twitter, he talks about this, where he says that, we're hiring all these people from different cultures. I don't want them to be an amalgamation of those cultures. I want them to be Twitter culture. And I think that's sort of what you are achieving at TubeMogul because of your personal involvement. I remember from the very beginning, in fact, I remember when I saw the first diligence documents when we were investing. I know you're smiling because I think you know what I'm going to say. I saw the names of all 15 or so people on there, on this sheet, and there were sales quotas against everyone, including all the engineers. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I said, WTF, what are you doing here? Like, why are you having the the engineering guys? It's okay, that the sales guys have quotas, maybe even product managers. You had a quota. Actually, I think you had the biggest number against your name, if I remember.
I think I still do.
But I think there was a cultural signal that, look, the most important thing is, we live or die by, what we bring in, right? And it all starts with the customer.
Yeah, we also do things like when you start and you go through this training, we make you share a hotel room with somebody. And increasingly, we're hiring pretty senior executives, and now they're sharing a hotel room. And it just sends a signal that you've got to check your ego at the door. This is a privet culture. We don't care where you came from. You need to get in line. You're just like everybody else. It's kind of a boot camp, if you will.
And this training part is actually really interesting because, and education really, it's almost like a, lifetime education for TubeMogulers inside TubeMogul. But another clever thing that you guys have done is extending that education for your customers. Because, what these guys are doing is taking what was done in a very traditional manual way to self-service, which means that their customers need to really understand how the software works and how to drive it, which is a new experience for them. And so you guys do this TubeMogul University throughout the world, where you've taken this, probably some of the same material that the product managers teach internally, and then embellished it to, to present it to the customers and teach them, which is, I attended some of those classes. They're very enlightening. Talk a little bit about that. So.
Yeah, so the same team that does internal training does client training. And, we all love learning things and being smarter. And we certainly sell a product, but one of the promises of our product is that you are always going to be at the forefront of your industry. You're going to get promoted because you're going to know more than anybody does in your space. And so while we're selling software, we bake in a lot of education. We have TubeMogul Universities, which is kind of a week-long event that we hold all around the world. Then we also have boot camps where clients come in for 3-4 days into our office and they train. And what we learned is that TubeMogul sells well too. So even while we're training people, these clients, they're wandering around the office and they're soaking in the culture. And they kind of, over time, fall in love with the company too. And Tuesday night, when they're in town for boot camp, we do a cocktail hour and the entire company shows up and we get time with our best clients, kind of on home turf when we can show our best side.
Yeah, that's great. So talk about some of the decisions that you've had to make as the company scaled from 3 or 4 people to over 400 people now, global company, public company. What are some of the tough decisions that you faced?
There's been a lot of that. I think initially it was, do I start a company or do I take a cushy MBA job? Do I raise money? Can I really build something that can support venture capital returns and all the things that mean? But I think the hardest decisions we really made as a team were some of the pivots that we made along the way. And when we started this company, we had this service where you could upload a video to us, and then you could send the video to one or all of the video sharing sites out there. And it was before YouTube had one, if you can remember that. There were all these sites. This is the company that you invested in back in 2009.
Video syndication, right?
Yeah. And that business, it took off. We had 400,000 users. It was going really well. It would have been very easy to just make a bet on it, but we've always been pretty self-aware. We just didn't really believe that the problems we solved were painful enough to build a real business. So we pivoted and we bought a company that did video analytics, and we became a video analytics company almost overnight. And basically we had code that went inside a video player, and if you're a publisher or media owner, you could see who was watching your video. And kind of like our initial business, we quickly became kind of a market leader in what we did. We were the leader in video analytics. But again, we just didn't really believe this could be a big standalone business. We're self-aware. Now, we started experimenting with advertising. And our pitch was, we basically built a video ad network. The pitch was, our video ad network is special precisely because of this huge video analytics business that we have. We're going to use the data to be smarter about targeting ads. And that was really the positioning around our B round. So I remember coming to you kind of right after that, you invested your pro rata, telling you, Ajay, we got to get rid of the analytics business. And what had happened, what we were seeing in the market is we had made kind of the discovery of video and tracking videos really easy for content creators. And we had this idea that if we flip the concept and we do the same thing for advertisers, there might be something there. So help advertisers get their videos watched and tracked. We didn't know it at the time. We were building a demand-side platform for video. But the decision we had to make is we still had this market-leading analytics product out there that required a lot of engineers, a lot of support. It was part of our pitch. In the end, we decided that we had to focus. And I think focus is something that you really need to watch out for. You raise venture capital, it's just so easy to lose your focus and forget why you started the company. We didn't really believe we could build an analytics business and build an advertising business at the same time. So we convinced Ajay and the rest of our board to sell our analytics business to...
Actually, I wanted to shut it down and you found a buyer.
Yeah, yeah. for a couple $1 million, which was big at the time. So that was a big decision when we did it, and I think the right decision.
We'll open it up to questions if anybody's got a question in a second here. But I just wanted to ask you a little bit about work-life balance. One of the things about your culture that is so interesting is I remember during the IPO, and I've been on the NASDAQ bell ringing thing a few times, but your IPO was distinct in that you actually had your children there, and not your children, just your children, but children of most of the people that you invited there to the podium. And then you also had actually, I think, invited the first 25 employees, if I remember correctly, that joined the company from the very beginning.
Yeah.
No matter who they were, right? Their roles, whether they were admins or executives, right? Which I thought was wonderful. In fact, I remember Nelson, who's the executive on the NASDAQ side, commenting to me that saying, hey, this is pretty different that there's so many kids on the stage. So I just want to mention that as an example of how your culture is so strong, both on the work side, but also the family side. How do you deal with work-life balance with your busy schedule, traveling all over the world and managing so many people?
I think when you make the decision to start a company, you're basically making the decision that your life is going to be work. And there's people that will tell you otherwise, but there's just all the odds are against you. And we know most companies don't succeed. And the only way that I've figured out how to consistently win is just by having an insane work ethic. And there's people that will tell you, look, if you can get your job done in 8 hours, that's great. I think if you can get your job done in 8 hours, your goals aren't aggressive enough. You need to accomplish things that are impossible all the time to win over the long term. One of the things we've done, because that's hard, and it's hard, we've been at it nearly a decade, it's hard on families, is we definitely have a culture where families come into the office a lot. We have a lot of events where family members come. We have awards for family members at those events. So I think there's just a recognition that there's no way around kind of the superhuman stamina that you need to be successful and the insane hard work. But we try to acknowledge it and bring people's families into the fold. And the IPO was great. And I think we did it the right way.
Very interesting decision, yeah. Questions from the audience? Yeah, I'll keep going until people have questions. So you mentioned the IPO. That was a pretty interesting decision for us that time, right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I guess the first thing to know is we built a company in a space that's absolutely hated by Wall Street, and it's called the ad tech sector. But the year before we went public, we had this realization that we were starting to scale. At some point, you've raised money. You have an obligation to generate a return for your investors. And we also really wanted to control our own destiny. I didn't want to have to wait for some company to buy me. We also thought in what's a really confusing and messy space that being public would give us a platform. And there's some other benefits. So we decided we were going to do it. And it definitely wasn't obvious at all at the time. But we put together a team. We started going through the process. And while we did, the comps in our sector just plummeted. They went down like 20%. So we started kind of making sure that we had private options as well. We decided to go for it. During the IPO roadshow, our comps again, other public companies in the ad tech space, the 2 weeks that we were on the roadshow, they dropped 20%. And
that plane got shot over Ukraine, if you remember.
That's right.
And Israel invaded Gaza.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, IPO roadshows are tough enough, but
Yeah.
I remember like every meeting, the guy from Fidelity or whatever hedge fund or mutual fund, they'd start the meeting and they'd say, before you start, Brett, just so you know, I've invested in some combination of Millennial Media, Rocket Fuel, Yumi, Tremor. I've lost my money on all of them. All of them are trading below their issuing price. I think you're too small and I hate your sector. go ahead. And that was the IPO
But they're
roadshow.
probably feeling really good right now because the stock is almost 3x the IPO price, right?
Yeah. I mean, we got it done. We had some very, very difficult decisions along the way. We tried to get the IPO done at a certain range. We couldn't get it done. I couldn't get it done. So we had a very intense, like 5-hour board meeting. It was the only board meeting I can remember where people were yelling and shouting. And, it was like, are we going to do this? Are we not? And it almost felt embarrassing at the time. We had private term sheets that were higher than the valuation that we were going to get on the street. But, like a lot of things when you're running a company, you just have to have conviction about your decisions. And I thought it was the right thing to do. And ultimately, we were kind of a hung jury. Right. We couldn't convince people. So in the end, it came down to me saying, look, I'm the founder, I'm the CEO. I've heard everybody, listened. This is what we're going to do. Fortunately, the next day, the stock was up 60%. It's been up quite a bit since then.
That's the right call.
Yeah.
Questions? One right there.
How do you hire for roles that you have not played before?
How do we hire for roles that what?
If you have not played before, I mean, that you have not experienced before.
You mean personally?
Yeah, so just to give you an example, both of us are typical founders kind of a thing, right? And
So if you're hiring like a salesperson, for example, yeah.
I'd say first and foremost, any role, we're hiring for culture. We're hiring for people that are going to come in and kill it. We're hiring for people that know they're joining a place where they have to prove it. That's the hard part. Interviewing for technical competency, you can use your network. You can call up Trinity and say, I'm hiring this role. Do you have anybody to help me? But interviewing, finding the right people that are going to fit in the culture that your team has created, in my mind, that's the hard part, and it's what you need to focus on.
Other questions?
What's the culture of the company? It's about accountability. It's about the do-say ratio. It's about moving very, very fast. It's a culture where generally we're okay if you make mistakes. We're in a space that changes every day, and if you're not innovating and you're not ahead of everybody, you lose. It's a scrappy culture. We really try to do a lot with a little. That's not because we don't have a lot of resources. It's just because we always believe you really have to focus if you want to win. And by kind of being a little bit resource constrained, often you make better decisions. Then lastly, I'd say it's a humble and self-aware culture. It's a place where we train people. If you make a mistake, you just admit it and you aggressively course correct and you move on. And that's the culture. We train everybody that is interviewing or starts. Here's what we expect of you, and you will not be promoted or make more money in this company if you're just good at your discrete function. If all you do is you're good at selling or coding, you won't move up at TubeMogul. You have to be a cultural fit as well. And we bake those cultural attributes actually into our performance system as well. So when you're going through a review, we're kind of grading you on culture as well as what you got done.
You guys are definitely humble and high performance, And I remember in the early stages, I used to always complain about lack of flash in marketing because your competitors would have less than half of what you had and be pumping their chests out there. But what is interesting is that over time, with internal resources actually, you guys built a very important profile in the sector.
Yeah, I think our strength and our weakness, and when you're building a company, you got to play to your strengths. I wasn't the super promoter. There was people that were better than that, and yeah, every board meeting, Brett, I'm not reading about you in TechCrunch. Brett, I'm not seeing you here, and you were pushing me the right way. But we ended up, because we weren't just trying to build kind of a flash in the pan company, we ended up building a company. Right? It was brick by brick by brick. We had to. We weren't going to win because of our flash and headlines.
More questions? Yeah. Take it in the back there from Matt first. Sure. She raised your arm.
You went through several pivots,
I think couple things. I mean, first of all, when you're going through these pivots, you've got a board, presumably, that's got to kind of back you. And one of the things that we did was we were just maniacal about hitting goals. And just everybody on the team, this is why engineers had sales goals, not because we wanted to, it's just you had to hit numbers. And what we found is when you hit numbers, your board, your investors, your employees, they give you the benefit of the doubt. So if you did believe there's a bet the company moment, people would go, well, this team, this person, they've delivered so far, I'm gonna back them. I think the second thing is, we're all venture capital backed companies. I mean, we only win if we have kind of exceptional growth. And if you don't see that in your business right now, you have to pivot. You have growth is all you have. There's a lot of companies that are profitable and make money. That's not what we do. Not at this stage. Not the stage that you're at. You have to grow quickly, and you have to constantly. In our company, we called it the magical money machine. We were always trying to find the business model that just worked, where we could just plug in salespeople and just we were done. And we were committed to just keep pivoting till we found it. So I think trust your gut and make sure that you have street cred with those around you and go for it.
Question there. You had a question, right? Yeah.
You've emphasized a lot about culture and acknowledged the fact that work-life balance at a startup is not always attainable. And I think it's easier for founders and early employees to adopt that attitude. But how do you implement that in the rest of the culture where you want a lot of doers, but at the same time you want them to remain passionate about what they do and continue to do less say?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed over time, frankly. I think in the beginning, it's all about kind of 24/7. Over time, as now we're trying to recruit more of a variety in our executive team and more diversity, it's just something that you have to address. And I mean, what we do at town halls, I will get up and just talk about, if you're here because of work-life balance alone, this probably isn't the right fit for you. There's a lot of jobs where you can seek out work-life balance. We are trying to do something great, and I think greatness has a cost. We're better about it over time, but we still struggle with it, and I don't know that we have the answer yet.
I think one interesting thing you've done is maybe the next best thing, which is to engage the families with the business, right? And to make them feel like they are part of it, right? Which is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you've always been helpful there too.
Because I did that with my own company, and I found the benefit of that because it's kind of like the next best thing, when you can't achieve that balance. So yeah.
Yep.
There was a question right there.
How do you sell software to customers that want to buy a managed service?
Well, that's a good question.
Very good question.
One of our innovations was basically, if you've ever bought advertising, it tends to be incredibly manual. Brand has an agency, they kick off a 2-week request for proposal process. There's lots of vendors and publishers and process, and it's just messy. And it takes a long time. Just because you win a deal, a campaign, doesn't mean that you're gonna win the next one. So I think, first of all, it was a recognition that we have to sell software or we're dead. You can't scale a company if you're selling a manual solution. And we weren't that good at it anyway, because to sell manual
others
solutions.
were better, actually. I remember.
Yeah, that wasn't what we were great at. So some of it, when we first launched, there was no market for what we did, and it was really hard. And so we had to wait out the market a little bit. It came to us. Some of it was we didn't overbet on the manual services part of the company. It would have been easy to do that because there was a model there. We knew how to do it. We stuck with our guns and what we believed in. And we were still around, and we were still a software company when advertisers decided they wanted to start buying that way.
Any other questions? Okay, that's the last one because I'm getting the signal from the back that we got to wrap up.
As a VC startup, how did you decide to buy a company versus build it yourself?
You know, it was a small company. We acquired a 5-person company in San Francisco, and the company was developing a technology that we were having a hard time developing. It was a scalable video analytics software. We loved the founders. They felt like TubeMogulers. And so it was a deal that was bite-sized. Our board kind of gave us confidence that we could do it. I remember talking about them in a board meeting, and you or Dick or someone was like, just go buy it. Just get it done. And that seemed audacious to me at the time because we were very small. But we did it, and it essentially kind of doubled our founder power because we picked up the 2 co-founders of this company. They really became co-founders of TubeMogul as well. So that was definitely a key decision that
Actually, you know, the other cool thing that you did at very early stage is that you empowered those 2 people, right? You put them in senior positions. One of them became the CTO of the entire company, right? And so that was pretty incredible. I thought that was for me coming in as a new investor at that time, you know, maybe like 2 or 3 board meetings.
Yeah.
I felt that was a very positive signal of how you're incorporating.
I remember we were trying to figure out who was going to be CEO.
Yeah.
And because there's a CEO of the company that we acquired and me, and there was a Halloween party, and we decided over a ring toss. And you know, fortunately,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I hope you're kidding. We're in a different company, I think. Any other questions? I think we need to wrap up. So, Allison says it's over. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's been a great journey, and I think this is just the beginning.
Thanks for betting on me.